are as dumb as they are ugly. And gentlemen, No Reference Rants recently uploaded another video, and he's uploading a lot of them due to not having much to do. In this particular upload, the little feller went absolutely bonkers over the fact that the Benghazi scandal isn't going away, and he did a poor job of changing the subject. Using his reasoning, because he's done multiple videos on Benghazi, this means he's seriously butthurt over it, and it's a huge problem. Brownie's used the same reasoning against me as I've debunked his arguments more than a dozen times, because he's belly aching about Benghazi, pounding the table, the possibility that this will end Hillary Clinton's political career. He's worried and has been owned. I could do numerous videos, and have in some cases, on the fallacious statements Brownie made in his video, but I'll restrict the commentary to 2 items. No Reference Rants prefers all debates to be a battle royale, as it's easier for him to hide behind his peanut gallery, and it makes it more difficult for others to pin him down on a subject if 29 topics are being thrown out all at once. So to begin, I will ask No Reference Rants, who provides no references in his video, are you accusing the GOP of being objectively or subjectively immoral for opposing Medicaid expansion? I'm not quite sure if you're saying it's objectively immoral, akin to someone saying, I don't like toothpaste, or objectively immoral, akin to someone saying, what they're doing is objectively evil and wrong, no matter what the government says. No matter what public opinion is. So anyone supporting him will have to answer that first. If you don't like that, you can go upload your own video crying about it. Next part in the main event will be fairly short and not very sweet for the old guy. Don't worry, No Reference Rants. If Hillary's candidacy is ended by the Benghazi scandal, you'll find another Democrat that supports drone attacks on American citizens. Don't worry about it, little man. I seriously doubt Hillary's presumed 2016 campaign will consist of chiding Hussein Obama for murdering 4 American citizens, one of which was specifically targeted with drone attacks. No Reference Rants will likely label those 4 folks as anti-American scum, as if getting a trial only applies to certain groups. The real sickos and anti-American scum don't deserve one. A fair trial is antiquated. However, if Hillary does come out and disavow Hussein's murdering American citizens with drone attacks, I will retract that. But I'll wager Brownie will be able to find another Democrat who is in love with drone attacks on civilians. Don't worry, No Reference Rants. If Hillary's candidacy is taken out by Benghazi, you'll find another Democrat that supports the Export-Import Bank and the crony capitalism attached to it. During Hillary's illustrious Senate career, the Senate reauthorized the Ex-Im Bank on 2 occasions, both by unanimous voice vote. Hillary was no doubt pounding the table and railing about the Bush administration's crony capitalism. So much so, she never spoke up when its reauthorization was pushed through via unanimous consent. Don't worry, Brownie. If Hillary's campaign is railroaded by Benghazi, you'll find another Democrat that supports bailouts for big banks and failed automakers. Granted, most of the TARP money that was sent to big banks has been paid back. The loans to GM, not so much. But Hillary voted for TARP, and then she voted to authorize TARP funds for non-financial institutions like GM. That vote failed, but Bush and Obama went ahead and gave them funds anyways. All the links are underneath the video, by the way. Unlike No Reference Rants, who does not provide references. Oh, I bet he's mad. He's pounding the table over there. TARP did nothing to change the system. Did nothing to address the decades-old government penchant for bailing out banks, and did nothing to address FDIC depositor insurance, a huge market distortion, but that's for another day. Point being, No Reference Rants will probably find another Democrat that supports that cronyism in 2016 should Hillary Clinton's political career be over. Don't worry, Brownie. Should Hillary Clinton's political career be over due to Benghazi, you'll find another Democrat that supports the Patriot Act. Hillary Clinton supported the initial authorization of the Patriot Act, which was signed by Bush. In other words, Bush didn't just pull it out of his butt and make it law. Congress had to pass it. You do understand basic civics, right? Okay. She also supported in 2006 a controversial reauthorization of the Patriot Act. So don't worry, little fella. You'll find another Democrat that's a frothing at the mouth supporter of the Patriot Act and warrantless wiretapping should Hillary not be up on the stage in 2016. Don't sweat it, little fella. If Hillary Clinton's candidacy is railroaded by Benghazi, no reference rants, we'll find another Democrat that supported providing aid to Syrian rebels. Back in February 2013, Hillary Clinton et al. Were pushing Hussein Obama to arm Syrian rebels. For quite a while, Hussein rejected those calls by Clinton, Panetta et al., but eventually became hell-bent on arming Syrian rebels and bombing the Assad regime. Remember when Hussein was nervously flapping his gums that he didn't need Congress's consent, but would ask for it anyways to bomb Syria? Until he found out public opinion was against it, he was going to go in. Hillary was on board with that as well. She wanted to intervene in Syria. Don't worry, little fella. You'll find another interventionist Democrat just like the current one and his Republican predecessor. Hillary even jumped the shark, referring to Syria's dictator Assad as a reformer. She's just as bad as John McCain when it comes to rubbing elbows with dictators and tyrants, only to call for their ouster later. She's part and parcel of the U.S.'s stupid foreign policy. Same coin, different side.
Good morning again, and we are joined in the studio by the Secretary of State and the Secretary of Defense. Madam Secretary, let me start with you. Tens of thousands of people have turned out protesting in Syria, which has been under the iron grip of the Assad for so many years now, one of the most repressive regimes in the world, I suppose. And when the demonstrators turned out, the regime opened fire and killed a number of civilians. Can we expect the United States to enter that conflict in the way we have entered the conflict in Libya?
No, each of these situations is unique, Bob. Certainly we deplore the violence in Syria. We call, as we have on all of these governments during this period of the Arab awakening, as some have called it, to be responding to their people's needs, not to engage in violence, permit peaceful protests, and begin a process of economic and political reform. The situation in Libya, which engendered so much concern from around the international community, had a leader who used military force against the protesters from one end of his country to the other, who publicly said things like, "We'll show no mercy, we'll go house to house." And the international community moved with great speed, in part because there's a history here. This is someone who has behaved in a way that caused grave concern in the past 40 plus years in the Arab world, the African world, Europe, and the United States.
But I mean, how can that be worse than what has happened in Syria over the years, where Bashar Assad's father killed 25,000 people at a lick? I mean, they opened fire with live ammunition on these civilians. Why is that different from Libya?
Well,
this is a friend of Iran, an enemy of Israel.
Well, if there were a coalition of the international community, if there were the passage of a Security Council resolution, if there were a call by the Arab League, if there was a condemnation that was universal, but that is not going to happen because I don't think that it's yet clear what will occur, what will unfold. There is a different leader in Syria now. Many of the members of Congress of both parties who have gone to Syria in recent months have said they believe he's a reformer. What's been happening there the last few weeks is deeply concerning. But there's a difference between calling out aircraft and indiscriminately strafing and bombing your own cities.
Don't worry, no reference rants. If Hillary's political career is over, you'll find another Democrat who engages in saber-rattling with Iran. I've addressed that in several other videos already. The hypocrisy of Democrats on Iran, crying about George W. Bush making the same statements they incessantly make pertaining to Iran. Ask yourself this: if one really believes these things about Iran, doesn't that mean we need to do something about it? If you're going to say these things and then do nothing, you're an idiot.
The Iranian regime already exports terrorism, not only to Israel's doorstep, but across the world. If we had a map I could put up there, I could show you what we track and plot on that map, the evidence of terrorism, mostly, thankfully, plots foiled or unsuccessful, unfortunately, as in Bulgaria, some that succeeded. But those plots, those activities of Iran directly and through their agents stretches from Mexico to Thailand. We see Iran bringing repression to Syria. We see Iran brutalizing their own people.
Don't worry, Brownie. If Hillary's political career has come to a screeching halt, you'll find another Democrat that supported bombing Libya sans congressional approval because Congress doesn't need to be sticking its nose in when it comes to the executive bombing foreign nations and getting involved in conflicts that have no bearing on U.S. national security. Hillary said on March 10th, 2011, quote, "I want to remind people that, we had a no-fly zone over Iraq." And editor's note, Bill Clinton supported regime change in Iraq as well. It did not prevent Saddam Hussein from slaughtering people on the ground, and it did not get him out of office. We had a no-fly zone, and then we had 78 days of bombing in Serbia. It did not get Milosevic out of office. It did not get him out of Kosovo until we put troops on the ground with our allies. End quote. She also said the following in February 2011.
Today, the world's eyes are fixed on Libya. We have seen Colonel Gaddafi's security forces open fire on peaceful protesters again and again. They have used heavy weapons on unarmed civilians. Mercenaries and thugs have been turned loose to attack demonstrators. There are reports of soldiers executed for refusing to turn their guns on their fellow citizens, of indiscriminate killings, arbitrary arrests, and torture. Colonel Gaddafi and those around him must be held accountable for these acts, which violate international legal obligations and common decency. Through their actions, they have lost the legitimacy to govern. And the people of Libya have made themselves clear. It is time for Gaddafi to go, now, without further violence or delay. The international community is speaking with one voice, and our message is unmistakable. These violations of universal rights are unacceptable and will not be tolerated.
No Reference Rants will possibly contend that Libya wasn't really a war. Okay, so if a coalition of Libyan and Arab League warplanes hypothetically bombed New York City or Washington, D.C., then that wouldn't be an act of war, right? Go ahead and use that one, and good luck with it. And lastly, No Reference Rants often attempts to paint himself as a moderate on gun control, which he isn't, but Hillary's comments on guns will be right up his alley. She will attempt to renew an assault weapons ban, and if Congress won't do it, she'll probably go the route of an executive order. I'm not sure Hillary has a clue which demographic in our society is perpetrating the vast majority of our gun violence, nor that homicide has declined markedly over the past 25 years, or how massive the increases have been in guns per capita, but she'll throw plenty of red meat to the troglodytes on that issue. Insignificant disagreements might lead to shootings in the ghetto, but most of Main Street America is pretty safe. I should also mention, ending the war on drugs will abate some of the violence in the ghetto, but even with that, it won't suddenly stop the flow of bastard children from baby mamas and baby daddies. That will require more intervention and not the government kind. Have a nice day, and don't thank me now for debunking No Reference Rants again.